What you're going to want to do to reassemble it now is you have your hammer. Your pawl goes in on the shooter's left side of the hammer, and the transfer bar goes in on the other side of it. I hold the transfer bar right over top of the pawl pivot pin, goes into the hammer, and I hold them out at an angle about like so. What I want to do is take and drop these back into the frame so that the pawl and the transfer bar slide into this opening. The pawl's going to come through the frame right here, so that's why it turns a cylinder. I'm going to take and start by dropping those pieces in. Now, I'm going to take my trigger. I'm going to place it in, just like so. I'm going to take, hopefully you can see this, and take a small screwdriver, lift up on the pawl, and hook it into the hole in the trigger. So now that they're connected. At this point, I'm going to take my hammer pivot pin, stick it in. I'm going to take my cylinder latch, drop it in with the pin facing me, with the rounded piece going into the window. That's how to into the hammer. Take my gate spring. First, before the gate spring, put the gate in the gun. Less fighting later. Take the gate spring, stick it in the trough. I'm going to pry up the pivot pin on the cylinder latch, slide the gate spring under it, and my gate just fell out. Make sure you put the gate in before you put the spring in. And then at this point, I'm going to take and push my trigger pin in. So you're going to take and depress the gate spring. The trigger pin goes in over top of it. And then I'm going to continue to just work that through, kind of pick up on stuff, kind of wiggle it around a little bit, get it all in. So now that that's together like that, I'm going to take a screwdriver, push up on the gate spring to get it to click back under the gate. Okay, you hold on to the gate spring, back of the trigger, back of the hammer, and you should be able to operate the gate. It should close with tension. So now, that's how you put the Vaquero back together. I'd assemble it back onto the frame. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the lock and the hammer strut back into the grip frame before I forget. It's much easier to do when the gun's still apart. So that guy's in there. You have your plunger that goes in the frame. That operates your cylinder latch. Right there, my hammer pivot pin just fell out. Pick the hammer up, wiggle that in place, get that in there. Okay, this little plunger guy. The plunger end goes forward. Goes into the hole in the back of the frame, right above the screw hole. Goes in the screw hole, you're going to ding it up and hurt it. So that guy goes in there just like that. Now, everything on here wants to function. To put these two together, you have to make sure that the hammer strut goes into the slot in the hammer, and you have to make sure that the cylinder latch plunger is on the cylinder latch, and that this little spring here doesn't get pinched on the back of the grip frame. To put that together, start by twitching the trigger and the trigger guard, lining up the plunger and the mainspring. You can kind of test fit everything. Now you have the gun. I'm going to take the gun upside down, hold on to it in the trigger guard on the back of the hammer. Now, to get everything back together, you have to get this trigger return spring to fall back in behind the little step on the trigger. So to do that, you push out with the little screwdriver, kind of pick up the grip frame, push down and back until it drops in behind there. Now, the frame is all together. Make sure that your cylinder latch has spring pressure under it, otherwise it won't work. And we know that this little spring back here didn't get bound up. So now, to start reassembling, put the little screw in the front first. I don't slug anything down tight till the very end. Get it there. Now, I know with my hammer pivot pin, you can take and push out a little bit if you're not sure, see which way is which. The groove is on this side of the gun. So I want to put my long screw in to capture that groove. That pin going into that groove keeps that pivot pin from falling out of the gun. Now the other next longest screw goes on the other side of the bottom of the frame, which leaves the two same size screws to go in the back of the gun. So I take these, put them in the holes in the back of the grip frame, and start them. If you don't want to scratch your gun up, you can take a piece of masking tape, put it over top of the back of the frame right here so that the screwdriver doesn't ding it. This is stainless. If it gets a little bit scratched, I don't mind. But on a blued gun, I would take more time. So now I've got all 5 grip screws back in, and my hammer mainspring is not released yet. You can feel it on the gun. I can feel that the frame's not quite smooth on all sides. It should line up, so you shouldn't feel a gap. I'm going to start with the screw in the front and just tighten it. Everything's feeling pretty good, so I'm going to go to one of the screws in the back and tighten him up, and the guy next to him. If the very front and very back of the gun are tight, the middle shouldn't really be able to move it at all. You may have to sequence which screws turn in first or last. Try to get the sides of it to go back together. It's all finished and polished on the sides when it's put together, so take it apart, assemble it again, it might not quite line up. So now everything is in, our spacer is still behind our lock. Point the muzzle up, pull the hammer back, pull our pin out, and the gun should function. At this point, you should be able to open the gate, not pull the hammer back, close the gate, pull the hammer back. With the hammer back, can't open the gate. Our cylinder latch has spring pressure on it. Pull the hammer back, pull the trigger, everything functions. Now, simple task, putting the grips back on. There's a roll pin here, goes into a hole in the grip. Make sure my grips are pushed all the way up into the corner so they can't go anywhere. And then I finish tightening down the grip screw. Not too terribly tight so you don't crack the plastic. Open the gate, take your cylinder with the ratchet end back, slide it in. You push the base pin release, get the base pin started into the center of the chamber, or in the cylinder, and I kind of spin the cylinder and fish it around until I get the base pin to flow in freely. That's in there. Cylinder spins. Close the gate. Cock. Shoot. That is how you disassemble and reassemble a Vaquero.